Hello, my name is Colin Mahler and I am here to be your instructor today for the European 6-in-1 chainmail ring, which is this lovely little ring right here. So this is a nice European chainmail mesh pattern. It's very dense yet very delicate. It's very slinky. It's a very nice little ring and you're going to have a lot of fun making it. This is an intermediate class, so if you have not taken any chainmail before and are unfamiliar with how to properly open and close your rings, I highly recommend that you go to our free classes and look at the Byzantine chain class and or the Intro to Chainmail class. I go over how to properly open and close your jump rings in both of those classes. And then you should hopefully be ready to go. This is kind of a tricky chain. It is an intermediate class, so again, if you haven't taken any chainmail before, you might want to start with something a little simpler and then come back to this. So that being said, let's go make our ring. So this is the European 6-in-1 chainmail ring, and this is a flat mesh chain that we're going to be making. So we're going to make a strip of this chain and then we're going to join it into a circle to create our ring. The European 6-in-1, the numbers, the 6-in-1 indicate how many rings are included in the pattern. So every single ring, every one ring has 6 rings attached to it. So this is going down the center of the chain. If you look at every ring going down the center and count how many rings are attached, there will be 6 rings attached to every single ring within this chain. So this is the ring that we're going to be making today. We can also make this a wider ring. We can add a little width to it after we make our initial piece, so we'll talk about that later. The size of jump rings that you're going to be using today are a 3.75 millimeter 20 gauge jump ring. And you are going to need about 100 of them. There are 87 rings in a 7.5, a size 7.5 ring. So 100 should take care of you, even if you have a slightly larger ring size. And you're going to need to open about 30 of your rings and close about 60 of them to do just this single row size ring. So the tools that you're going to be needing or using today for your European 6-in-1 chainmail ring are a pair of chain nose pliers and a pair of bent chain nose pliers and the ever handy paper clip. So I just want to mention that this is an intermediate class and I have, you should have already prepped your rings, which means you should have opened some and closed the rest. If you are unfamiliar with how to properly open and close your jump rings, I would highly recommend that you go watch one or both of the free chainmail videos, the Byzantine chain and the Intro to Chainmail videos. Both of those videos go over how to properly open and close your jump rings. So you can leave now and go do that and then come back if you are unfamiliar. Otherwise, you should have your rings all prepped and ready to go. So we're going to start with one of our open jump rings. And I'm going to take 6 of my closed rings, thus the 6-in-1, and I'm going to put them on my open ring. And I'm going to close this ring. Then I'm going to take my paper clip and I'm going to attach it to this single ring here. All right, so you should have one single ring attached to your paper clip with 6 jump rings hanging off of it. And then we'll move on and start constructing our chain. So now we are going to take our rings and we're going to split these 6 rings in half. So I'm going to take 3 to one side and 3 to the other. And I'm going to going to kind of fan them out and arrange them. Now this chain has a front and a back side to it, and it's going to be a little difficult to see right now, but as we move along it will become more obvious what you're looking for. So this is the front side of the chain right now that I'm on, and these rings to the side here should be in front of this center ring. And what I mean by that is when you look at this, you should see all the side rings. You shouldn't be able to see the top of this center ring, which you can't. It's hidden behind these the rings to the side. If I flip this over, then the top of the center ring is very visible right there. I don't want to see this. This is the back side of my chain. If I'm working on the back side of my chain, the whole piece will not hold together. So this is the back where you can see the top of that center ring. And then this is the front where the top of that center ring is hidden behind all these side rings. Okay. You will also be able to see the bottom of this center ring, and as the chain builds up, you'll see the bottoms of all the center rings kind of running down and pointing towards your paper clip. So, and I'll check back when we, I'll show you that again later when we have more of a piece of chain to look at, but for now we're just going to continue on. So I've arranged all my rings. Now keep in mind that this is going to be a flat piece of chain, so you want these rings to be opened out and laid flat, like so. Now I'm going to pick up another open ring, and I want to pick it up so that I'm holding it in the center of the ring as opposed to picking it up from one side or the other. I'm going to go through the top two pairs of rings on either side of the chain here. So I'm going to take the right side of my jump ring and I'm going to go through the two rings over here on the right. And then I'm going to take the left side of the ring and work it through the two rings over on the left. So both the ends of my jump ring will come in through the front and come out of the back. And if your chain does not at this point stay open like this, you did it wrong. And I will show you what that looks like. If you did it wrong, if you linked this center ring through improperly, it will be obvious right away, because it will end up looking like this. So, see the difference? It's really obvious. So if you did it wrong, it will look like this, which is not the way you want it to look. So take that out and do it again. So we'll take our rings, split them in half, fan them out. Again, this is the front of my chain. I can't, oops, oh, there's back. I cannot see, or should not be able to see, the top of my center ring. So once again, I'm picking up this open ring in the center of the ring. I'm putting the right side of the ring through the two rings, the topmost rings on the right side, and then going through the two rings on the left side. Again, both ends of my jump ring are coming in through the front and coming out the back, and when I'm done with that, these should stay spread open like that. Now before I close this ring up, I'm going to add two closed rings onto it, and it doesn't matter what side you put these rings on. They can be, put them both on the same side of this ring, one on either side, it really doesn't matter as long as you get them on there. And then you can go ahead and close up your jump ring. Like so. Now I'm going to take those two rings that I just added and I want to bring one over to either side. And these rings to either side should, on the front side of the chain, the last rings that you added will be in the back of everything else. So all of these other side rings will stack up in front of it. The last ring you added will be in the very back of the pile. Again, if you turn this over and look at the back side of the chain, not only can I see the top of this center ring, but the last pair of rings that I added on the sides are stacked on top of everything else instead of behind. So that's the back. And here again is the front. See? Can't see the top of that center ring. So we are kind of at a wash, rinse, repeat cycle now. So I'm going to keep going here for a couple more steps. I'm going to take another open ring. Again, I'm going to grab the ring right in the center of the ring. And I'm going to go through the last 2 pairs. So you're always going through the last 2 pairs of rings on the sides of the chain. So the right side of my ring went through the right rings, the left side of my ring, I'm going to convince to go through the 2 rings on the left, like so. So I'm going through 2 rings on either side. Now before I close it, I'm going to add 2 more closed rings onto this open ring. Oops, maybe. And now I'm going to close it up. Now these rings on the very bottom are just going to want to kind of flop around wherever they want to. Don't worry about those. We'll take care of those when we go to join the ring together. So here we go. Here's our start of our chain. I'll do one more set of rings on here, but I just want you to look and see. So this again is the front of our chain. You can see the bottoms of these center rings pointing down towards the paper clip. And again, the last pair of rings on the end here are behind, stacked behind all the other side rings. And if I flip it over like so, I can see the tops of these center rings kind of pointing up and away from the paper clip. And the last pair of rings on the end are stacked on the top of everything, of all the other rings, instead of behind. Oops. So once again, we're going to go back to the front of our chain here and do this again. So we're just going to keep repeating this until we have a strip of chain that is long enough to wrap around the finger that you want the ring to go on. Now I'm going to show you, if you're having trouble getting this center ring through, I'm going to show you a slightly different method for linking this ring through. Now instead of grabbing the ring right in the center, I want you to grab it on the right end of the ring. And instead of coming from the front, we're going to come from behind. So I'm going to take the left side of this ring, I'm going to come from behind on the right side, and I'm going to go through those 2 rings on the right. And I'm going to turn my ring around so the end of the ring is now pointing towards the left. I'm going to scoop up the 2 rings on the left side here, like so. And I'm going to add my 2 closed rings and then close this ring up. Oops. All right, oops, get over there. Do you want to see that one again? Okay, just one more time, and then you're going to have to finish this piece. All right, so I'm picking up another open ring. I'm going to pick it up on the right side of the ring. Coming from behind the chain on the right side, I'm going to go through the 2 rings on the right and turn the ring around so that the end of the ring is pointing towards the left side of the chain. I'm going to scoop up those 2 rings on the left, like so. Take that piece of fuzz off. Then I'm going to add my 2 closed rings onto that open one. And I'm going to close this ring. Okay, so here is our little piece of European 6-in-1 mesh. It's starting to look like something. So you're just going to keep on doing this until you, again, get a strip of chain that is long enough to wrap around whichever finger you're going to put it on. So now I have finished my little strip of chain here. I have gone ahead and finished off my chain with a center ring. I didn't add that last 2 pair of rings on the end. So I ended with the center ring. I've closed it up and attached another paper clip to it. These rings on either end have a tendency to want to flip around and not stay where you want them to. So putting a paper clip on either end will keep everything in place until you're ready to join the ring together. And I'm just going to go ahead and measure this piece that I've built up here. And that measures just about 2.5 inches or so. I'm not sure what size that will end up, but I will throw this onto the ring mandrel after I join it, and I will tell you what size ring this makes. So now what we're going to do, my yellow paper clip is my beginning end, just for reference. You may want to use 2 different color paper clips, just so you know what end you started on. So what I'm going to do, so I've finished my chain with a center ring, and what I'm going to do is this center ring here on the very end is going to be the ring that I use to join the 2 pieces together. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off now that I'm ready to go here. And I want the back side of the chain, which is not this side. Nope, yep, that is that side. So I want the back side of the chain. Again, on the back side you can see the tops of all these center rings, and they're all pointing up and away from the paper clip, as opposed to the front side of the chain where you see the bottoms of all these center rings and they're all pointed down towards the paper clip. So again, flip it over. I want the back side of the chain, and I'm just going to wrap this around my finger. So I want the, again, back side of the chain is going to be to the outside of your ring. I'm just going to take it, bring it around, and kind of hold the 2 pieces together. This is all a little bit tricky. And I'm going to take the second paper clip off, and I need to open up this center ring. So I've opened the center ring on the end of the chain. I'm going to arrange all my rings so they're all open and ready to go. I'm going to wrap this around my finger. So here is my open center ring. And this ring here is going through 2 pairs of rings on the end of the chain, so I only want to pick up 1 more pair of rings from the other end. So what I want to do is take either ring from the beginning end of your chain, and you're going to pull them down onto the ends of that open jump ring. Again, this is tricky and may take a couple of tries. Okay, I don't know if you can see any of that, but I've just joined the ring together. I am going through a total of 6 rings, 2 from that I was already going through on this end, and then I picked up 1 pair of rings from the other end. Now I'm going to go ahead and close this ring up. All right, so we have joined our ring together, and we have a gap in between our 2 the beginning and ending center rings. So we have 1 more ring to add in to completely join it all together and make it look all smooth and beautiful. So what I'm going to do is I have an open ring here. I have grabbed it from the right side of the ring, and I'm going to come from the top of the chain. And this is a little tricky. I'm going to come from the top of the chain and I'm going to scoop down underneath and behind and come back up through the top. What I'm trying to do basically is get this ring linked in where it needs to be and have both ends come out on the top side of the chain so that I can actually close it. Otherwise, if I get this linked in where it needs to go, but do it in a different method, I could end up with both my ends on the inside of my chain, which will make it really difficult to try and close that ring up nicely. So again, I have an open ring. I've grabbed it from the right side of the ring. I'm going to come from the top side of the chain and I'm going to find my gap where I'm missing that ring there. And I want this ring to end up right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the left side of my ring, I'm going to find this space, the pair of rings that I want this to be going through finally, and I'm going to start there. So this is the place where I'm closing this gap. So I'm going to go on the left side, I'm going to pick up 1, 2, 3 rings on the left, okay? Then make sure you're not scooping up any more than 3. I'm going to scoop, I can't really see that, but I just went underneath the chain and flipped the whole thing around. I know it's a little difficult to see. I want to come back up through the 3 corresponding rings on the right side of the chain. So I have a total of 6 rings that I've managed to get on this, and I'm just going to kind of squeeze the ring together to hold that ring in place and get this all closed up. Okay, so now I have closed that gap. You can see it's all, looks all even and seamless. So again, that second ring is tricky. It may take you 2, 3, 4 tries to get it in, but you can get it in there, don't worry. It just kind of takes a little bit of staring at it until you figure it out. So this is it. This is our completed ring. It's all joined together. Slide it and it actually fits. I measured it just right. And now I'm going to take it and put it onto the ring mandrel so we can see what size this is. Slid it onto my ring mandrel. That's what, about a 6.5? So that's about a 6.5. So 2.5 inches of this chain will get you about a 6.5 inch ring or so. So a few more rings will get you size 7, 7.5. So here is your finished ring, and you can leave it just like this. This is a nice, slinky, fairly substantial ring. But if you'd like a wider, fatter ring, we can add a couple of rows of rings onto this and make it a bigger ring. So what you're going to do, you're going to need open rings for this, and to determine how many rings you're going to need to add width, you're pretty much, if you take your paper clip and clip it into any one of these rings on the side, it's kind of be your marker, and count that as 1, and then count all the rings, how many rings you have around one side, on this ring in particular, there are 28 rings that go all the way around. So I have opened 28 rings, and I'm going to add that many rings to the edge of my chain to make it wider. And this is really simple. Adding width to the European mesh is a lot simpler than actually making this initial section. And I highly recommend making this initial section and joining it before you add any width to your chain, because it's a lot easier. Then you only have to join in one place instead of 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an open jump ring, and it doesn't matter if you're on the front or whatever, what direction this is facing in, these rings that you add to the sides will orient themselves automatically, so you don't have to worry about that. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take this open ring and I'm just going to scoop through 1, 2, 3 rings, oops, not 4, but 3. 3 of these rings on the side of my chain. So 1, 2, 3, I've scooped up all 3 rings in one single motion. I'm not pulling any fancy maneuvers. I'm just going to go through those 3 rings and I'm going to close this. If you have put on a ring and you don't see it sticking out from the side of your chain, then you've probably pulled a fancy maneuver and it's buried up here, and you're going to have to open it up and take it out and try that again. So we're going to take another open ring, and I am going to come 1 ring up from where I started. So I'm picking up 3 rings again on the edge of my chain. So I've picked up 1, 2, 3 rings here. Now I'm going to go 2, 3, and 4. Rings 2, 3, and 4. I'm picking up 1, 2, 3 rings. Again, I'm just scooping through all 3 rings in one motion. I'm not doing anything fancy. And I'm going to close it. And see how they just start to settle themselves. They're stacking nicely on top of each other. Pick up another open ring. Now I'm going to go through, this ring here has gone through rings 2, 3, and 4 on the, 2, 3, and 4 on the edge. Now I'm going to pick up 3, 4, and 5 with this 1, 2, 3 rings. Yep, 3 rings. Close this. So you're just going to continue doing this all the way around the edge of your chain. And again, you can stop there, depending on how big your fingers are, I think, and how wide of a ring you can handle. So I'll get it just that much wider right below my knuckle there. You can always continue adding rows. You can make this as big and fat as you want to. And you can add a row of rings to either side of your chain. You can add both rows to the same side. It really doesn't matter. All the rings will sort themselves out as you go along. One thing to keep in mind is that your ring will become, as you make it wider, it will become a little bit tighter, so you may want to add 1 extra row of rings onto this initial section if you're going to plan on making it wider, just to give yourself a little extra room. So when this ring, when it gets wide and fat, it will tighten up, and then so hopefully it'll fit the same if you just add 1 extra row of rings to this initial piece before you join it. All right, so I've gone all the way around my ring, and now I'm going to add the last one in this row just to close it up. So once again, I'm just picking up 1, 2, 3 rings here on the edge, making sure I haven't picked up anything else. And then I'm going to go ahead and close this. And there we go. Oh, no, we have 1 more to go. Sorry about that. So you can see that there's a gap here on the edge. A little bit, it's kind of subtle, but it's there. See it here? So we have to add 1 more ring and close up that gap. Pick up another open ring. 1, 2, 3 rings. Again, don't pick up any extra rings with that. It's easy to do. And close up that ring. And there we go, now we're all done. All right, so now I've got my row all finished, and I'm ready to try my ring on again. And it's a little bit wider and a little bit tighter. Not too bad, it's nice and snug. So see, that gave me a little bit extra width. Here's the other ring. Here, it's not quite as fat. And I'm going to take both of these and slide them on the ring mandrel. So this one with the single row looks to be about an 8 or so. And then this one, and I'm not saying that these two started out at the same length. I suspect this one was shorter to begin with. This one turned out, it was what, at a 6.5 when I started, and now it's at about a 6, so it did shrink up about half a size when I added that extra row. And you can go ahead and continue making this wider if you want to do a total of 5 rows, if you have nice long fingers and you can handle it. Otherwise, you may not be able to close your fist if you make your ring too fat. So there is that. And if you wanted to maybe not make a ring and skip all that pesky joining stuff, you can go ahead and just build this in one long strip and make a bracelet out of it, and then you can make that as wide as you'd like. You can also go ahead, these are just shiny, tumbled, bright silver. You can also go ahead and oxidize these rings with liver of sulfur, and then buff it off with some steel wool and some pro polish pads, and maybe throw it in your tumbler, and it just really pops out all the nice design work that is inherent in this pattern. Well, I hope you had a good time today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that you are wearing one of your new rings that you've just made, either the wider version or the skinny version. Again, it will depend on how big your fingers are. So thank you very much for joining me. Come again. See you next time.